This portrait of two siblings looks sweet until you notice how he is touching her shoulder. The spring morning brought an unusual warmth to the Atlanta History Center, where Dr. Marcus Webb had spent the last 6 months putting together an exhibition on African American ways of communicating during and after slavery. The collection had grown bigger than he expected. Quilts with hidden patterns, songs with secret meanings, even everyday household items that carried messages only certain people could understand. But this photograph, which arrived just yesterday from a private estate sale, needed his full attention right away. The portrait showed two young people, clearly brother and sister, posed in the formal way common in 1903. The young man stood behind his sister. Both wore their best clothes. His suit looked well made, showing the family had some money, and her white blouse had fine embroidery. Their faces were serious, as was usual in photos from that time, but their eyes showed a clear intelligence that seemed to cross the years. Marcus had looked at hundreds of similar portraits, but something about this one bothered him. He could not quite say what it was until he looked away and then back again. That is when he saw it. The brother's hand rested on his sister's shoulder in a way that seemed normal at first. But the more Marcus studied it, the more carefully unusual it looked. The fingers were not relaxed. They were placed with purpose. The index and middle fingers stretched out fully, the ring finger bent at the second knuckle, the pinky slightly curved, and the thumb pressed firmly against the side of her shoulder. Marcus had studied enough secret communication to spot purpose when he saw it. This was not the simple touch of a caring brother. This was a message. He reached for his phone and opened the reference photos he had gathered over months of research. These included images of hand signals used by conductors on the Underground Railroad, gestures made by freed people looking for lost family members, and the quiet codes created by black communities to survive the difficult times of Jim Crow America. Nothing matched exactly, but there were close similarities. Marcus turned to the index card that came with the photograph. The details were very limited. Robert and Grace Thompson, Atlanta, Georgia, June 1903. Photographer J.B. Harrison Studio from the estate of Florence Thompson, Henderson. He opened his laptop and started searching census records. Thompson was a common last name, and Atlanta in 1903 had thousands of black families. But he had a date and 2 first names. It was a beginning. As he waited for the search results, Marcus looked at the photograph again. Robert seemed to be about 17 or 18. Grace looked younger, maybe 14 or 15. The census results soon appeared. Robert Thompson, age 18, listed as a laborer. Grace Thompson, age 15, listed as a student. Parents, Samuel and Ruth Thompson. Address 1 to 27 Auburn Avenue, Atlanta. Marcus felt a spark of excitement. Auburn Avenue was becoming the center of Black Atlanta in 1903, a busy area where African American businesses, churches, and groups were growing despite unfair racial laws. But why would 2 teenagers from this community pose for a photograph with their hands placed in what Marcus now felt sure was a code? What message were they trying to send? Marcus spent the rest of the morning searching digital archives. His coffee grew cold as he went deeper into the history of Auburn Avenue in the early 1900s. What he found showed a community facing hard times, yet working hard to survive and succeed. By 1903, the short hope of Reconstruction had fully ended. Georgia had put in place poll taxes and literacy tests meant to stop black people from voting. Segregation laws controlled every public place. Violence, both unplanned and organized, scared black communities across the South. Yet Auburn Avenue had become a place of black business and strength, home to doctors, lawyers, teachers, and store owners who would not be defeated. The Thompson family address led Marcus to property records showing Samuel Thompson owned a small grocery store on Auburn Avenue. Tax records showed modest but steady earnings, enough to support a family and save a bit. This was a family that had gained something special in 1903, stability and some independence in a world built to deny them both. But what linked them to the secret communication networks Marcus had been studying? Grocery stores, he knew, had often been more than places to buy food. They were meeting spots, centers for news, places where communities came together. During slavery, Some shops had been stops on the Underground Railroad. After freedom, they kept serving quiet purposes, sharing messages, hiding people in trouble, and organizing help. Marcus opened his email and wrote a message to Dr. Patricia Lawrence, a colleague at Spelman College who knew a lot about post-Reconstruction Black communities in Atlanta. He attached the photograph and described the unusual hand position, asking if she had seen anything like it in her work. While waiting for a reply, Marcus started looking for descendants of the Thompson family. The estate sale note mentioned Florence Thompson Henderson as the source of the photograph. A quick search showed an obituary from 6 months earlier. Florence Henderson, age 89, died peacefully at her home in Decatur, Georgia. She was survived by her daughter Linda Henderson Carter and 2 grandchildren. Marcus found Linda's contact details through a professional site. She was a retired school teacher living in Stone Mountain. He wrote a careful email introducing himself and explaining his research on the photograph of her ancestors. He shared his belief that Robert and Grace may have been part of something important in history. He sent it and leaned back in his chair. The archive room was quiet, except for the sound of the climate control system. His phone buzzed almost right away. Patricia had replied, "Marcus, this is very interesting. I do not know the exact hand code, but I can tell you that 1903 was an important year in Atlanta. There was a lot of work around bringing families back together. Many people were still looking for relatives separated during slavery. There were also worries about orphan trains and systems that were basically forcing black children back into labor. If Robert and Grace were part of that work, they would have needed ways to recognize each other without drawing notice. Can you meet tomorrow?" Marcus replied quickly to set up the meeting. As he gathered his things, another email arrived. Linda Henderson Carter had answered. "Dr. Webb, I am so glad you reached out. My grandmother told me stories about Robert and Grace when I was young. She always said they were bridge builders who helped broken families find their way home. She left me a box of old letters and papers. Would you like to see them?" Marcus's hands shook a little as he typed his reply. Linda Henderson Carter's home was a simple brick house in Stone Mountain. Its front yard was neat with azaleas just starting to bloom. Marcus arrived right on time, carrying his leather folder and a digital recorder. He had hardly rung the bell when the door opened. A woman in her early 60s with silver-streaked hair and warm, smart eyes greeted him. She reminded him at once of Grace Thompson in the photograph. "Dr. Webb, please come in. I have been looking forward to this all morning." Linda's handshake was strong and her smile real. She led him through a living room filled with family photos from many years to a dining room where a large cardboard box sat on the clean table next to tea. "I pulled this down from the attic last night," Linda said, pointing to the box. "I have not looked at most of this since my grandmother passed in 1994. She made me promise to keep it safe. She said it was important history, but she died before she could explain it all." Marcus sat down carefully and accepted the tea Linda poured. "What did your grandmother tell you about Robert and Grace?" Linda settled into her chair, holding her teacup. "Grandma Florence was Robert's granddaughter. She said he and Grace were teenagers when they started what she called the finding work. She said it was not safe to talk about openly, even years later, because some families still felt shame about what had happened to them." "Shame about what?" Marcus asked gently. "About losing their children," Linda said, her voice lower. "Grandma said that after slavery ended, people moved around looking for work, safety, and family members who had been sold. In all that confusion, children got lost. Some were taken by former slave owners, claiming legal rights. Others went to orphanages or were sent on trains to work as forced labor in other states. Parents searched for years, but the system made them disappear." Marcus felt a chill even in the warm room. He had read about these practices, the apprenticeship laws that continued slavery in a new form, the orphan trains that sent poor children to distant farms, and the legal tricks that split families and made reuniting almost impossible. "Robert and Grace helped find these children?" he asked. "That is what Grandma said. They were part of a network of people who could travel without raising suspicion. Teenagers who could act as servants or workers and move between places gathering information. They would learn where children had been taken and work with others to send word back to families." Linda reached for the box and started taking things out. yellowed letters tied with ribbon, a small leather journal, old newspaper clippings, and more photographs. "This is the journal Grace kept," she said, sliding it to Marcus. "Grandma said it was written in code, but she never learned how to read it." Marcus opened the journal carefully. The pages had neat writing, but the entries were hard to understand. Dates, initials, numbers. June 15, 1903, RMT to visit. 3 packages. Auburn delivery successful. Hands remember, Marcus said quietly, looking up at Linda. "The photograph. The way Robert is touching Grace's shoulder. Your grandmother never explained that?" Linda shook her head. "She just said they had their own language." Patricia Lawrence's office at Spelman College was small but tidy. Every surface held books, papers, and items from her many years of research. When Marcus arrived the next morning with his laptop full of photos of journal pages, she had already made space on her desk and taken out several reference books. "I have been thinking about this all night," Patricia said, starting right away. "Show me everything you found." Marcus opened his laptop and showed the photos of Grace's journal next to the portrait of the siblings. Patricia leaned in close, studying the hand position carefully. "Okay," she said slowly. "Let me show you something." She took out a leather notebook filled with her notes and drawings. "About 15 years ago, I spoke with a woman named Mrs. Henrietta James. She was 97 and her grandmother had been part of what she called the locator network around the turn of the century. Mrs. James showed me hand signals her grandmother taught her. They were ways network members recognized each other." Patricia turned pages until she found one with hand-drawn pictures. "Look at this one." She called it the bridge-keeper sign. Index and middle fingers extended meant safe passage. She showed it by placing her hand on someone's shoulder, just like in the photograph. Marcus felt a thrill. What about the other fingers? The bent ring finger, the curved pinky. "I did not get every detail," Patricia said. "Mrs. James was very old, and some things had been forgotten, but she said different finger positions added meaning. A bent ring finger might mean a promise or oath. A curved pinky could mean protection or watching over someone. So Robert's hand position in the photograph could be saying something like safe passage, sworn promise, and protection." Exactly. It would tell anyone in the network that he and Grace were serious about the work and could be trusted with the most important people, children being brought back to their families. Patricia looked at the journal pages on the screen. "Now, let's see if we can understand these entries." They worked through the morning. Patricia's deep knowledge of the time and Marcus's fresh view helped them unlock the secret language in Grace's journal. Patterns appeared. Initials stood for families. Numbers showed children's ages. Places were hidden with ordinary words. Auburn delivery meant a child had been safely returned to family on Auburn Avenue. One entry from July 1903 made them both stop. July 18th, 3 packages, ages 6, 8, 10. Charleston origin. Father searching 4 years. Conductor MB confirmed. Route through Augusta. Hands remember risk high. 3 children, Patricia said softly. Lost or taken from their father in Charleston 4 years earlier, probably around 1899. Robert and Grace were helping bring them back. Marcus scrolled to later entries. Look, August 2nd. Packages arrived. Auburn. Father reunion. Tears of joy. Hands blessed. They did it. They brought those children home. But not all entries had happy endings. September 1903. Saint Family. Package lost. Trail ended. Virginia, hearts broken. Some children could never be found. Some families stayed broken. Patricia sat back and wiped her eyes. They were so young, Marcus. Teenagers doing this dangerous work. Over the next week, Marcus and Patricia carefully studied Grace's journal. They checked entries against census records, old newspapers, and church lists. A clear picture grew of a wide network working across Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. A secret group of activists, church leaders, store owners, and brave teenagers like Robert and Grace, who risked everything to bring families back together. The network had no official name, but members used secret words. Bridge builders or conductors were those who searched for missing children. Safe houses were homes and businesses where information could be shared safely. Packages always meant children, never things. This choice reminded everyone that these were precious lives. Marcus learned that the Thompson family grocery store on Auburn Avenue was a main center. Samuel Thompson let the back room be used for meetings. Their mother Ruth kept careful records hidden in store ledgers that looked like normal grocery lists, but actually tracked families looking for children and possible leads. The network worked under constant danger. In 1903, any black person who went against the racial rules, even by helping families, risked arrest, harm, or worse. The codes and signals were not just smart tools. They were ways to survive. "Look at this entry," Patricia said, pointing to an October 1903 note. October 12th, white men asking questions. Auburn network suspended 2 weeks. Photograph protocol initiated. Photograph protocol? Marcus asked. Patricia picked up the portrait of Robert and Grace again. "I think this is what it means. When the network felt danger, and it was too risky to meet or pass messages directly, they used photographs like this one as proof. Network members traveling to other places could show the photograph to prove who they were. The hand signal would confirm they were real." Marcus understood at once. So Robert and Grace might have carried copies of this portrait. When they reached a new city looking for a missing child, they showed the photograph to the local contact. The contact would see the hand signal and know they could be trusted. "It's brilliant," Patricia said, "and it explains why they posed this way. This was not a simple family portrait. It was a document, a kind of passport into a secret world." Marcus opened another file with photographs from other families. "Patricia, look at this." He showed a 1904 portrait of a young woman with her hand placed in a similar way on a chair. "Another network member?" Patricia leaned closer. "Maybe. And if we can spot the pattern, we might find others. There could be dozens of these photographs in collections, all hiding the same secret." They spent the afternoon checking every photograph in Marcus's research files for similar hand positions. They found 3 more likely ones, all from the same time and from cities mentioned in Grace's journal. As evening came, Marcus's phone rang. It was Linda Henderson Carter. "Dr. Webb, I found something else in my grandmother's things, a letter from Grace to Robert, dated 1906. I think you need to see it." The letter was on thin paper that had turned yellow. The ink was faded but could still be read. Linda had put it in a protective cover, and Marcus handled it with care as he photographed each page the next morning in her dining room. Patricia had joined them, and together they read Grace's words out loud while Linda listened with tears in her eyes. "My dearest brother Robert, I write to you from Birmingham with news both happy and sad. The Johnson children, all 4 of them, have been found. They were working on a farm outside Montgomery, told they were orphans with no family looking for them. When I showed their mother's photograph, the eldest girl Sarah collapsed in my arms crying. She is 12 now, Robert. She was 8 when they were taken. She thought her mother had left them. The farmer claimed legal papers, but Brother Matthews checked them and found they were fake. We leave tomorrow with the children. Their mother will have her babies back after 4 years of searching. 4 years of believing they were gone forever. But Robert, I must tell you of the cost. Sister Caroline, who sheltered us in her home, was arrested yesterday. The authorities said she was hiding runaways. Though these children are not enslaved, they are free citizens stolen from their families. She faces trial next month. Her husband says she will not back down, will not say sorry, will not betray the network. She is braver than I could ever be. Sometimes I wonder if we are making any difference at all. For every child we find, 10 more disappear into the system. For every family we reunite, 20 more search without hope. The laws are against us. The courts are against us. The whole system is built to keep us apart, to break us, to make us forget we are human beings with the right to love our children and keep them safe. But then I remember Sarah's face when she saw her mother's photograph. I remember the sound of reunion, the crying, the laughing, the tight hugs of people who thought they would never touch again. And I know we must keep going. We must build our bridges one step at a time. Even if the river keeps rising, even if the current tries to pull us under, Father says the grocery store had to close for 3 days last week after white men came asking questions about our activities. Mother is scared, though she tries not to show it. I fear we have put the family in danger. Yet when I suggested stopping the work, Father would not listen. This is what we are called to do, he said. We cannot stop just because it is hard. The photograph you and I took last year has been our saving grace. I have shown it in 4 cities now, and each time the local contacts recognize the signal and welcome me. Sister Margaret in Charleston said it was like watching a flower open when she saw our hands positioned that way. She knew right away she could trust me. Brother, I am tired. I am only 17 years old, and sometimes I feel so old. But I am also thankful. Thankful for you, for our family, for the network of brave people who risk everything so others might be whole again. Keep your hands ready, Robert. There is more work to do. Your loving sister, Grace. The room was quiet when Patricia finished reading. Linda wiped her eyes, and Marcus felt his own eyes blur. This letter changed the photograph from a historical item into something much deeper. Proof of great courage and a network that worked in the shadows of history to reunite families the world wanted to forget. Marcus spent the next several days learning more about Sister Caroline, the woman Grace mentioned in her letter. Patricia helped search court records from Birmingham in 1906. What they found was both inspiring and sad. Caroline Davis had been arrested in April 1906 for harboring vagrant children, a charge often used against those helping with family reunions. The trial record showed she refused to name others in the network despite threats. Her husband, a carpenter named Thomas Davis, spoke in her defense, saying his wife was only showing Christian kindness to children in need. The all-white jury decided quickly and found her guilty. She received 6 months of hard labor. The local black newspaper covered the trial with clear anger, calling Caroline a woman of strong character punished for showing compassion. But the story did not end there. Patricia found a petition from May 1906, signed by over 200 members of Birmingham's black community, asking for Caroline's release. Among the names was Brother Matthews from Grace's Journal. They organized, Patricia said, spreading out the papers. They could not prevent her conviction, but they made sure the white leaders knew the community was watching and would not accept this unfairness quietly. Marcus found another journal entry from June 1906. Sister Caroline released early. Community pressure successful. Network stronger than ever. New rules set. We adapt. We survive. We continue. Caroline had served only 2 months before being let go, likely because of the community's efforts. But the network learned from it. Later entries showed more care, stronger codes, and greater use of documents like the photographs to prove identity without words that could be overheard. Marcus also learned that Robert had been arrested briefly in 1905, though the charges were dropped. The event was scary enough that Samuel and Ruth Thompson thought about stopping their children from the work. But Robert and Grace insisted. There are children out there who need us. We cannot leave them just because we are afraid. The fear was real. Marcus found newspaper stories of other network members who were not as lucky as Caroline. Some were beaten, forced from their homes, or jailed for longer times. One man died in custody under strange conditions. A woman had to flee Georgia, leaving her own family to escape punishment. Yet the network kept going. Grace's Journal continued through 1908, recording dozens of successful reunions. Each entry meant a family made whole again. Children returned to parents who never stopped looking. Siblings brought back together after years apart. They knew the risks, Patricia said quietly, and they did it anyway. That is true courage. Marcus nodded, thinking of the photograph. Robert's hand on Grace's shoulder with fingers in their secret code. That image, which looked like a simple family portrait, was really a statement of defiance. It said, "We exist. We resist. We will not let you break us apart." With Linda's permission, Marcus and Patricia started contacting historical groups and museums across the Southeast. They shared the photograph of Robert and Grace and asked if anyone had seen similar hand positions in old portraits. The answers came slowly at first, then grew quickly. A museum in Charleston sent pictures of 3 portraits with matching hand signals. A historical society in Richmond shared a photo of 5 people with fingers arranged in variations of the code. A descendant in Savannah sent a family portrait from 1904 where two people showed the same signs. Within 2 months, Marcus and Patricia had identified over 40 photographs that seemed to show network members. Some were formal studio pictures, like Robert and Grace's. Others were group shots from churches or family gatherings, but in each one, someone's hands were placed with clear purpose. This was not just a local group, Patricia said, marking locations on a large board in her office. This was spread across the region, maybe bigger, and it worked for at least 10 years, probably more. Marcus had also started talking to descendants of people in these photographs. The stories they shared added rich details to what came from Grace's journal. Many families had passed down oral histories, tales of brave aunts and uncles who did the finding work, of grandparents who risked everything to keep families together. An elderly man in Atlanta named James Porter told Marcus about his great-aunt, who was one of the youngest in the network. She was only 13 when she started. He said she could travel more easily than adults. White people did not notice a young girl doing errands. She would carry messages between cities, hidden in her dress hems or inside books. A woman in Colombia told how her grandmother kept a safe house, feeding and sheltering network members who passed through. My grandmother said they had signals for everything, how you knocked on the door, where you stood on the porch, even how you folded your handkerchief. All of it meant something. The more Marcus learned, the more he admired the smart design of the network. These were not careless activists. They were careful, planned, and very successful, running a complex system under constant watch and threat. Patricia found records of a meeting in 1904 at a black church in Atlanta, where network leaders came together to make their codes standard and set rules for communication between cities. Robert Thompson's name was in the notes, showing he had been more than just a worker in the field. He had helped build the network structure. He was 18 years old, Patricia said with wonder, and he was in leadership meetings helping design a secret group that would work across several states. Marcus thought of Robert in the photograph, his serious face, his hand placed with such care. He had not just posed for a picture. He had recorded his promise to a bigger cause, creating proof that would last long after the danger passed. The photograph was not just a code. It was a lasting gift. Grace's journal entry stopped suddenly in December 1908. For weeks, Marcus searched for what happened to her and Robert after that. Census records showed both siblings alive in 1910, still with their parents on Auburn Avenue. But the sudden end of the journal worried him. Had the network ended? Had Grace simply stopped writing? The answer came from an unexpected place. Linda called Marcus one evening, her voice full of feeling. "I found another letter," she said. "It was hidden inside the back cover of the journal. I did not see it until today because the pages were stuck." "Marcus, you need to read this." He drove to Stone Mountain right away. The letter was dated January 1909, written in a different, shakier handwriting than Grace's. Linda explained it was from Robert. "To whoever reads Grace's journal in the years to come, my sister can no longer write, so I write for her. In November, we traveled to Montgomery to get 2 children whose mother had been searching since 1905. We found the children working in a textile mill. Their hands hurt from the machines, their spirits almost broken. Grace convinced the mill boss that she was a relative come to take them. We left before dawn with the children hidden in the back of a wagon. But someone had warned the authorities. We were followed. 5 miles outside the city, they caught us. There were 4 men on horseback. They demanded we give up the children. Grace stood between them and those little ones. She would not move. They beat her. They would have killed her, but other travelers on the road stepped in, white people shocked by what they saw. Grace survived, but she was badly hurt. Her writing hand was damaged. The doctors say she may never use it fully again. The children are safe. Our mother has them now." Grace made sure of that even while she lay bleeding. She gave them to a passing minister who got them to safety while I tried to protect her. My sister is the bravest person I have ever known. She is 17 years old and she has changed more lives than most people do in 80 years. She cannot write her own story anymore, but I will make sure it is not forgotten. The network continues. We have become more careful, but we have not stopped. Every child we save makes every risk worth it. Grace says she would do it all again, even knowing the cost. That is who she is. If you are reading this many years from now, please remember her. Remember all of us who did this work. We were ordinary people, shopkeepers, children, teachers, carpenters, washerwomen, but we refused to accept that families should be torn apart. We refused to let the world make us forget that Black lives, Black families, Black love matter. Look at our photograph. See how I place my hand on my sister's shoulder. That is the sign of our promise. Safe passage, sworn oath, protection. We kept that promise no matter what it cost us. With respect and hope for a better future, Robert Thompson. Marcus and Patricia sat with Linda in her dining room, none of them able to speak for several minutes after reading Robert's letter. The photograph gained yet another layer of meaning. It was not just a code or proof. It was a memorial to great sacrifice. 6 months after finding the photograph, Marcus stood in the Atlanta History Center's main gallery getting ready for the opening of his exhibition. Hands Remember, the Family Reunification Network, 1900 to 1910. The portrait of Robert and Grace Thompson was the main piece, shown with Grace's journal, Robert's letter, and 43 other photographs of network members across the Southeast. Patricia had helped create clear explanation panels that decoded the hand signals and gave the historical background. Linda had loaned her grandmother's documents. Descendants of other network members had shared their own family items, letters, diaries, and even small hand-drawn maps used to guide rescue trips. But the most moving part of the exhibition was a video where descendants shared their family stories. James Porter spoke about his great-aunt, the 13-year-old messenger. The woman from Columbia described her grandmother's safe house. Linda read parts of Grace's letter about the Johnson children. As visitors arrived for the opening reception, Marcus watched their reactions. He saw people lean close to study the photograph of Robert and Grace. He saw them copy the position of Robert's fingers with their own hands. He saw understanding grow as they realized what they were seeing. An elderly woman came up to Marcus during the reception. "My grandmother used to make that hand signal," she said softly. "I never knew what it meant. She would do it sometimes when telling stories about the old days, talking about people who helped others. Now I understand she was part of this." That kind of conversation happened many times that evening. Descendants of network members, people who had grown up with pieces of these stories, finally saw the whole picture. The codes their grandparents taught them, the mysterious hand gestures and indirect words, all made sense now. Patricia gave a speech near the end of the reception, her voice strong. What Robert and Grace Thompson and their fellow network members did was not just rescue children. They protected the basic human right to family. They showed through their actions and courage that Black families matter, that Black love matters, that no law, no system of oppression, no amount of violence could break the bonds between parents and children, brothers and sisters, families and their history. She pointed to the photograph. This image, which looks like a simple family portrait, is actually one of the strongest political statements of its time. It says, "We exist as a network. We will protect each other. We will not let you erase us." Marcus thought about Grace, whose injured hand stopped her writing, but not her dedication to the work. He thought about Robert, who lived until 1962, long enough to see the civil rights movement grow, long enough to know that the fight he and Grace started continued in new ways. He thought about all the children reunited with their families because of the network, children who grew up, had families of their own, and created branches of family trees that would have been cut off without help. The exhibition would run for 6 months and then travel to other museums. Marcus had already heard from researchers in other states who wanted to look for similar networks in their areas. The story of Robert and Grace Thompson had opened a door to a hidden part of history, showing a smart resistance movement that worked openly for years. As the reception ended and guests left, Marcus stood alone in front of the photograph one last time. Robert's hand on Grace's shoulder, fingers placed with clear purpose, safe passage, sworn promise, protection. They had kept their promise. And now, 121 years later, their hands were finally being remembered.